I should also say here that we know this about Star Wars, that it is inspired and influenced and a confluence of many other inspirations. Star Wars is intentionally based on everything that came before it. George Lucas always talks of himself as a cultural anthropologist and studying all these different things, looking at all these different stories and sort of ingesting it, and what he put out is Star Wars. The brilliance of Star Wars is that it builds on this great well of mythology, of religion, of fiction, of film. All of these things came together via self-proclaimed cultural anthropologist George Lucas. One of those many influences is the work of Edgar Rice Burroughs, particularly John Carter of Mars. I also need to credit RunDNA on Reddit and Andrew G on Medium, who pointed out that RunDNA posted this on Reddit, because those two people are why I read this. I do most of my research in books, but this was something I found online. Now, the Reddit post leans heavily into the idea that George Lucas copied it, which he did. That doesn't mean he stole it. At least I don't think it does. He did use it and use a lot of it, but I see it as a launching point, a writing exercise to launch him into that world, figure out what's going on, and then figure out how to tell a story with it, using something familiar, something that he clearly had an affinity and affection for. This, I don't think, was something he intended to then try to sell as this, but this was his way to get into the thing that obviously became Star Wars. And the way in was copying something by Edgar Rice Burroughs, which I think is also the plot to Finding Forrester.
I helped him to find his own words by starting with some of mine.
George Lucas copied a lot of things, and the sum of those things became Star Wars, a unique thing on the other side. Incidentally, I'm currently rereading Dune, and Star Wars, Dune is all over that as well, although not as directly as you see here. As I said, it was a confluence, and the result of that confluence?
Star Wars, a billion years in the making.
George Lucas gave it to his agent, and his agent apparently didn't understand it, which is relatable. I'll say that much. That part I could relate to. George Lucas then dealt with all that stuff with American Graffiti that we already talked about at the beginning, so he had all that going on. And then in May, he wrote what would become known as the Star Wars, dated May 25th, 1973. Lucas said, "I've always had these images flashing into my head. I have an overwhelming drive to get that great shot of two spaceships, one firing at the other, as they dive through the space fortress. By God, I want to see that. That image in my head, and I won't rest until I see it on the big screen."